how very much I've loved you, how very much I've tried my best to give you the good life. But in spite of all of that I've tried, a handful of our people, with their lies, have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today. Not only we're in a compound situation, not only are there those who have left and committed the betrayal of the century.
On November 18th, 1978, in the jungles of Guyana, over 900 Americans died. These weren't soldiers. They were families, children, and seniors who had followed a charismatic cult leader, Jim Jones, to a remote settlement they called the People's Temple Agricultural Project, or simply Jonestown. They were promised a paradise, a utopia free from the racism and inequality of the United States. That promise, however, would twist and sour into a paranoid, isolated nightmare. Until September 11th, 2001, it was the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act. So how did a dream of a better world end in such horror? Born in rural Indiana during the Great Depression, Jones was an unusual child. His father was a disabled World War I veteran, and his mother worked to support the family, leaving Jones often isolated. This solitude fueled a strange and intense obsession with religion and death. He was known to perform elaborate funerals for small animals he found. As a teen, he began practicing his own sermons, and after high school, he started preaching on the street corners of Indianapolis. In 1955, at just 24 years old, Jones founded his own church, the People's Temple. It began with a powerful and, for its time, radical vision, a fully integrated congregation built on principles of social justice and racial equality. In an era of deep segregation, Jones actively recruited African American members and appointed black leaders, and his rainbow family of adopted children of different races served as a symbol of his message. He blended the fiery style of Pentecostal faith healings, which were often staged to build faith, with a socialist ideology that promised to care for the poor and marginalized. The temple opened soup kitchens, provided social services, and became a political force, attracting a diverse following of people yearning for a better world. This promise of paradise, however, was born from one man's increasingly paranoid and controlling mind. That vision would eventually lead his followers to a settlement they called Jonestown, twisting the dream of a utopia into a nightmare. The beginning of the end was set in motion by the arrival of a man on a mission, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan. A Democrat from California, Ryan had a reputation for bold, hands-on investigations. In 1970, he even went undercover as an inmate to expose conditions in California's prisons. Now his focus was on Jonestown. For months, a group called the Concerned Relatives, made up of former members and worried families, had been sharing disturbing allegations of abuse, fraud, and people being held against their will. After hitting a wall with the U.S. State Department, which repeatedly insisted everything was fine, Ryan decided he had to see the situation for himself. On November 17, 1978, he arrived in Jonestown with a delegation that included his legal aide, Jackie Spire, journalists from major networks, and members of the Concerned Relatives. At first, Jonestown put on its best face. The delegation was welcomed with a lively musical performance, but the facade quickly showed cracks. Jim Jones, looking gaunt and increasingly paranoid from drug use, launched into a rant about government conspiracies. Still, to an outsider, many residents seemed happy, and life in the remote commune appeared peaceful. But that carefully constructed image didn't hold for long. During the reception, while music played, a reporter was secretly passed a note. It was from a temple member desperate to leave. Soon, more notes followed. Another family wanting out, another quiet plea for help. By the next morning, November 18th, What began as a fact-finding mission was rapidly turning into a rescue operation. On the morning of November 18th, you could feel the tension in the air. Congressman Ryan announced that anyone who wanted to leave Jonestown was free to go with him. One by one, then in small groups, people stepped forward. In the end, about 16 members chose to defect. It might not sound like a huge number, but to Jim Jones, it was the ultimate betrayal. Jones pleaded with them, even offering one family $5,000 to stay, but they refused. As the defectors and Ryan's group boarded a truck to head for the Port Kaituma airstrip, the atmosphere exploded into violence. A temple member lunged at Congressman Ryan with a knife. Ryan was unharmed, but the attack shattered any remaining illusion of peace. The truck sped off, carrying everyone toward what they thought was safety. They reached the airstrip in the late afternoon, where two small planes were waiting. But as they prepared to board, a tractor pulling a large trailer rolled onto the runway. Suddenly, several of Jones's most loyal guards stood up from the trailer and opened fire. What happened next was a massacre. Congressman Leo Ryan was shot and killed. 3 journalists, NBC reporter Don Harris, NBC cameraman Bob Brown, and photographer Greg Robinson, were murdered as they documented the attack. A defector, Patricia Parks, was also killed. 11 others were wounded, including Ryan's aide, Jackie Spire, who was shot 5 times and left for dead on the tarmac. The ambush was swift and brutal. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones now knew there was no going back. As the gunmen returned from the airstrip, Jones ordered everyone to the central pavilion. The time had come for what he'd long called revolutionary suicide, an outcome he had even rehearsed during terrifying drills known as White Nights. Over the loudspeakers, his voice, strained and slurred, announced their fate. He told them Congressman Ryan was dead, and that the outside world would now descend on them, that soldiers would torture their children and destroy everything they had built. If we can't live in peace, then we must die in peace, he told them.
They're out there! They're out there! They can hear us! They know we mean it! We'll kill them if they come!
A chilling justification captured on a 44-minute recording, now known as the death tape. A large metal vat was brought out, filled with a grape-flavored drink. And here's a common misconception. It was Flavor-Aid, not Kool-Aid. Into this drink, they mixed a deadly cocktail of cyanide, Valium, and other sedatives. The children were first. Syringes without needles were used to squirt the poison into the mouths of babies and young children. The cries of children can be heard on the tape, a haunting sound that soon fades as the poison takes over. Parents were then instructed to drink the poison, many dying with their arms wrapped around their children. But let's be very clear. This wasn't just a mass suicide. It was a mass murder-suicide. Survivors reported that armed guards surrounded the pavilion to prevent anyone from escaping, and those who resisted were held down and forcibly injected. One brave woman, Christine Miller, can be heard on the death tape arguing with Jones, pleading for another way. I think that there were too few who left for 1,200 people to give them their lives, she protested, but her voice was drowned out by the crowd. In the end, 909 people died at Jonestown that day. Over 300 of them were children. Adding the 5 killed at the airstrip and 4 other temple members who committed murder-suicide in Georgetown, the total death toll was 918. Jim Jones didn't drink the poison. He was found dead in a chair on the stage, a single, likely self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. The story of Jonestown is a powerful warning about belief and betrayal. The victims of Jonestown weren't nameless cultists. They were people, teachers, veterans, and families who were drawn to the People's Temple for its message of racial equality and social justice. They were individuals with hopes and dreams, all searching for a community where they felt they belonged. In the end, they were betrayed by the very man they had trusted with their lives. The question that still lingers decades later is not just how this happened, but why the promise of utopia was so powerful that nearly 1,000 people followed it to their deaths. What do you think is the most important lesson from Jonestown? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.